What's up, guys? Welcome to the Walk On Warrior podcast, where we prepare young student athletes for next level success. I am your host, Coach Z. I'm super excited for our guest today. He has been there. He has done that in the world of fitness and strength training. And listen, I wanted to bring him on because, listen, you young student athletes just don't know yet. And so we want to get you locked and loaded as best as we can. And without further ado, Mr. John Hart, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Dustin. Thank you very much. It's really nice to be here, and I have a heart, for the young guys and girls that are out there that are just getting to that level where, whether it's being involved in sports or having a specific goal in mind outside of sports, the application is going to be both the same. Starts in one place, right there. But go ahead.
Yeah. I always like to start podcasts off with a little icebreaker, and I want to share with you and the audience, the viewers who's watching, how I found out about you, Mr. John Hart. I'm sitting here and I'm going through YouTube, and I'm a big bodybuilding fan. I was a strength coach for a long time, and I just have a real heart for that I guess you would say just category when it comes to fitness and everything. And I run across this guy, and his name is Rick Drayson. And I just, a real sweet guy. And he talked about the good old days. And gosh, there's this guy that kept showing up, Mr. America. And I'm like, I gotta turn this on. He's got probably a ton of information. And you had to have had, I don't even know how many episodes with Rick. And so that was my introduction to you. And I'm like, and these interviews that you guys are doing, it's not just your X's and O's. It's kind of a casual conversation.
Yeah.
It's fun. So
yeah. Well, Rick was also a professional wrestler back in the day. He was a bodybuilder who competed with Arnold, competed early on in the Arnold era, in the golden era of bodybuilding. And he also was a training partner of Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the 70s. So when he had me on as a guest on his channel, the first time there was a really nice response, right? So he invited me back naturally. And I lived nearby. So, every other week or so I would come back and revisit. So about twice a month I was a guest, and we get loose, and sometimes it would be a little bit of this because, not in a negative way, but I'm a Christian, and I watch my words, and you won't hear me cussing it up or anything like that, and yet I've lived a life prior to that. So of course, hanging out with Rick, who was a man's man, who's been around the block, and he's since passed. He's gone on down the road in the last few years. But he was a great friend. And so it made for an interesting combination, let's say, when we did those interviews. And a lot of bodybuilding talk, of course, and a lot of goal setting and achieving talk, of course, as well. So I recommend the interviews, for anybody who wants to see them. And, Rick was a great, fun character and a great friend, too. I loved him very much. So, yeah, I'm glad you saw those interviews. And, a lot of fun was had over the years. That's for sure. But, yeah. He'd have me come on back. We were doing it in a very fun way.
Yeah. And also on top of that, I really appreciate you talking about your faith. I think that is another thing that, a lot of the young student athletes really need to dig into, because they're going to go through many different obstacles in their life, especially growing up, and having faith and having a foundation in God biblically is such a huge thing that we're losing today. And that's such a I don't know if you wanted to speak to that, but that's huge.
That's Dustin, that's really important. I'm glad you stopped me on that, because we started this podcast and we saying it all starts right there. But now in a sense, that's true, because we all make decisions. Okay. So it depends on where your faith is, right? If you are walking in faith as a Christian, like I do, and a lot of others, then it's really a heart issue, number one. And the way that God leads my life or others who are of the faith, well, if you respond to that, then you'll realize that Psalm 37:4 and 5 talks about delighting yourself also in the Lord and committing your ways unto him, trusting in him, and he gives you the desires of your heart, and that he will bring it to pass. I just kind of paraphrased it. I jumped it around a little bit, but those are the actual sentences that it talks about. So if you know in your heart first that God placed something, so at a very young age, God placed this bodybuilding thing inside of me, and I was always kind of thrilled by Mr. America, Mr. Olympia, Mr. Universe, all of that, the big titles. Well, it doesn't matter if we're talking about that or if we're talking about making it to the league, making it to NFL. Doesn't matter if we're talking about either or. Okay, it doesn't matter if you're talking about playing on Sundays, right? Or stepping up on a stage once a year or twice a year. Your goal is your goal. And if God gave you the gifts, the talents, and the ability to do those things, then your response to that is everything. So do you run with that? And do you go, all right, God's put in my heart. This is my goal. It's right here. I'm going straight to that. I don't care what the path looks like. Because sometimes, Dustin, the path is not necessarily linear, right? Going up. So sometimes a lot of your athletes will know, right? Going from high school to college, D1, going up to the next level after that. The path is like this, right? It could be it's a zigzag. As long as it's going up, that's what we're looking for. That's really what we're looking for. So whether you have any sort of a challenge along the way, it goes without saying there's going to be a challenge along the way. So yes, I am bold and out there about my faith, and I wouldn't have it any other way. The part that I would share is with those who are believers. I consider you to be brothers and sisters, and as such in the faith, I would expect that you keep your eyes on your prize and have the kind of faith that even during the rough times, does not matter. Even during the rough times, Coach Z, even during the rough times, I know you got athletes, they having rough times, okay? Doesn't matter if we're talking about, an ACL. Doesn't matter if we're talking about, a bad family situation. Does not even matter, okay? You can be there for those things. You can attend to those things, but that does not change your goal. Your goal is still here. You're going from here to here, okay? So getting from there to there, what's it going to take? It's not going to be linear at times, and that's okay. So all you're going to do is in the back of your mind, you're going to say, all right, this is just a minor setback, but this one step back is going to cause me to go forward 2, 3 steps. That's all it is. It's a launching pad for great success later on. It's a launching pad for where I will later on be. So that's the way I think about things. You know what I mean? And God, and having God on your side, man, that's just it. Yeah. It's, the Bible talks about, no weapon formed against me will prosper. Okay. Brothers and sisters, please hear that one. Okay. If there's no weapon formed against you, you're going to prosper. The fact is there are weapons that will be formed against you. Okay. And yet they won't prosper as long as you don't fold, buckle, as long as you don't sit here confessing that it's killing you or that it's beating you down or that you're not going to make it. If anything, you should be claiming the opposite, that it's nothing. This is a minor, it's a pimple on your butt. Let's move on. Boom, like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. And that, that's one thing that, like I said, so we'll get together, after practices once or twice a week, and we'll have like the FCA, or we'll have all these different groups that'll come by and work with the kids. And we got something close by called Gridiron Ministries. And,
sure.
So we definitely we're trying to grab, the young student athletes as much as we can from a spiritual side, because where I'm at is a junior college, and you're grabbing kids from every walk of life, everywhere physically, but everywhere mentally, emotionally, and so on. You'll even get kids that go and they're 4 or 5 star kids, end up going somewhere and then fail out or whatever the situation may be. And so we're all our job is to say, hold on a sec, just take a deep breath. We're going to reset this thing, and we're going to push you in that right direction. Now, of course, we're not going to get them all, but we're trying to use the sport, something that you can relate to, and we'll take this spiritual thing that's really extremely important, and we'll put it together with the journey and the path you're going to go on. And a lot of them grow up without dads. Some of them will grow up without parents. Some, it's so on.
Yeah.
And so that's why I say it's so important to really dig into the mentality, the mindset, the faith, and having a foundation, and everything. Because, when a kid gets to that next level, that collegiate level, now you're dealing with off-season programs. Now you're dealing with just getting to practice. Now you're dealing with scheduling. Now you're dealing with all these adult things, but mentally you're like 8 years old. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah. So it's one of those kinds of things. So let's back up real quick. So go ahead for the viewers. Let's give them a quick rundown kind of your story. I know it's hard to say that, but kind of give a rundown of, your upbringing to kind of where you ended up.
Sure. I started out, I was raised in New York, out on a part of Long Island on the North Shore. And, early on in high school, I was introduced to bodybuilding. I was actually brought to a bodybuilding seminar by my uncle. And, and it was really interesting to me. It was so interesting that it made me research it. It made me look more into it. It made me want to study it and know more about it prior to just jumping in and stepping in. And that's the difference between athletes at your level and what I had done, is that the bodybuilding thing, you have to wait until you're probably, getting into the age where your hormones are starting to flow. About 14 or so is the best age, 15 to get really into it. But kids playing football or any sports in general, they're playing since a young age. But whenever you're introduced to it and you know that it lights you up, and that did light me up, it made me research it, made me hungry for it. There was something about it that kind of thrilled me. And then the day came where I ended up getting to go to a local YMCA in New York and starting to work out. And from that point on, first time I touched the barbell, I knew. And it lit me up, and it drove me early on. As a teenager, I competed in New York in a teenage show, did very well. I didn't win, but in Teenage Empire States in the mid 80s. And then from that point on, so I'm dating myself here because now I'm 59. I'm 59 as of the day of this interview. So a little bit older than y'all out there, but it's okay. God restores my youth like the eagles, he says. Okay. So I'm with it. And then from that point on, I had the vision in my head of what bodybuilding looked like to me. And I wanted to go where it was very, very hot. And where was it hot? Southern California. So as a teenager, I worked out for a few years, and then around about 20 years old, hopped on a jet, moved with a friend of mine, moved to Los Angeles, to Santa Monica and Venice, and got around the crowd, let's say, and the bodybuilding crowd. And my thing was natural bodybuilding. So that was the deal, was I wanted to do my bodybuilding without the steroids and without the growth hormones and any, performance enhancing drugs. And that was a big deal because, the drug culture was very large and it was everywhere. And here I was working out in the places, Gold's Gym and World's Gym, right? These were the bodybuilding, the mecca of bodybuilding, right? The capital of the bodybuilding world, so to speak, right? And so doing that, I continued to compete in, off and on every couple of years, every few years throughout my 20s. And, won a few shows, Novice California Gold Cup, Mr. Huntington Beach. These are all local shows. And then I kind of hit that wall where it was obvious that the level I was at was not the same as the drug level. So I had to make a decision, and competing in natural only contests at that point, drug tested contests, was my thing. And I realized, it was a good thing because I ended up doing very well competing in natural bodybuilding, winning some local shows, and then going to the natural Mr. Universe in 2001. I was already in my early 30s, and I went into that and I won my class at the natural Mr. Universe. And suddenly it was like, oh, okay, I don't know how much further I can go with this, because I didn't know, natural Mr. Universe was a big, big title to me. Okay. So I didn't know how far I wanted to do this just for the sake of doing it. In other words, what was my motivation? My motivation was the titles themselves. So that's what I realized. So identifying in yourself, what is the motivating factor? Okay. So for me, it was titles, and it wasn't being showy, walking around the gym. It wasn't being in public and trying to look big. Those things didn't matter to me, obviously, because I was a natural bodybuilder. Natural bodybuilders don't look like what most of y'all think is a bodybuilder, because drug bodybuilders, enhanced bodybuilders, you can see them even in their clothes. They're massive. They're massive. Out of clothes, they're massive. But in clothes, that's your triple extra large plus guy, right? That they're massive. So unless they're fat, you don't have to wonder, are they using anything? That's it. I don't judge any individual. You can go ahead and do whatever you want to do. That's on you. Okay. Just like I did what I wanted to do. And if you do choose to use, that's on you. But I'm talking about for those who want to have the education to know the difference, the ones who you see and you go, wow, massive. You just answered the question, because in natural bodybuilding, that's never going to happen. In natural bodybuilding, the best natural bodybuilders in the world, and I was a professional natural bodybuilder eventually, they look normal in clothes, XL shirts, XL sweatshirts. And then, and I'm, just under 6 feet tall. So that's what I'm wearing. It's what I wear. And, you get eventually, you're never hard to break 200 pounds. Very rare. They break 200 pounds in shape. That's the other thing too. So I ended up competing, and after the Natural Mr. Universe, I kind of called it a career, I thought. And I met my wife and we started a family. And so for 10, 11 years, I was thinking, I'm training for fun. I really enjoy how I look, and training for my wife. And, again, it wasn't an ego thing for me. It never was. It was my own little private art project. For those of you who have a creative side, okay, I identified early that in me, I had a creative side, and the creative side needed to be fulfilled. Okay. So how do I fulfill that? Bodybuilding was an answer for that. And it still is to this day. Training for bodybuilding in the gym with weights, for me, it's another answer. I'm a type A, alpha, aggressive, all out. I choose to do something. I'm going at it. I'm goal oriented. I'm hyper aggressive. There's no question. I don't need to check my testosterone levels, even at 59. I already know. You don't have to. No one's going to tell me any different. I already know they're high. That's all. And, you could tell also because sometimes the hair doesn't like to hang around. For testosterone levels are really high. I'm just kidding. But eventually, my heart's desire ultimately, was to be Mr. America. And Dustin, I that title, it was always a untested show. And I didn't know there was even a natural version, but I wanted to be Mr. America. And God answered my heart's desire. See, I just quoted it to you. Delight yourself also in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your ways unto him, trust him, and he will bring it to pass, the Bible says. So one day I was just walking in a supermarket, and here I was, 47 years old at that point, and walking around looking under my clothes like I could still do it, and training hard. And the desire of my heart was that Mr. America. All of a sudden I opened up some fitness magazine, and here it is. The Mr. America is back. And it's talking about how the contest went away for years. No one was using it. No one was promoting it. And it just kind of went into a funk. And then some man was inspired to buy the rights to the contest. I'm assuming by God. And he bought it, and he decided to run it as a natural drug tested show, which meant that's my realm. That's me. Okay. So they already had one contest in 2011. So in 2012, I was standing in the middle of the supermarket. I looked to God, and I openly talk with God, man. For those of you who don't believe, you're going to think I'm nuts. That's okay. Okay. But I asked the Lord, I said, Lord, you know my heart. I want this. I'm asking you for permission to do this. And I still got it. I know I can win it like that. And he hit me with in the heart with, a confirmation. But I said, Lord, I know I believe you just hit me with a yes, but I'm going to go to sleep tonight. When I wake up tomorrow, if I wake up with this high motivation, I know it's from you. I'm going to pray about it again. And if I wake up and I got that, I'm going for it. And the next morning I woke up, and the rest is history. I went all out in 2012. I won my class. I lost the overall by 1 vote. So I was light heavyweight Mr. America, and I decided to come back one more year after that. And I pushed it for 11 months. And in 2013, April of 2013, I became the oldest Mr. America of all time, going back to 1938. So I had won it at 48 years, 5 months, and 24 days. So the message in this one, and this one, you can go ahead and turn this part into a short. The message in this one, brothers and sisters, is this. If God puts something on your heart, it doesn't matter what it is. Does not matter what it is. If he put it on your heart and it's still on your heart and you've not done it yet, it ain't over. It ain't over. Just like with me. Maybe you will become the oldest to accomplish whatever it is that God put on your heart to do, but you will accomplish it. He will bring it to pass. Just remain steady, remain true. Keep him as the foundation. Keep God as your foundation. Everything else will fall into place. And then, of course, do the work. That helps, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. One thing that really stood out when you were telling your story is you said, well, I went from New York all the way to California. And for most people, you realize you're going all the way across the country, but you were what, like 19 years old?
Sure, 20. I was 20. Yeah.
Yeah, well, but either way, that's a big move. And that's a thing where you're like, well, I'm committing to something and I'm truly committing. And once I get all the way over there, there ain't no turning back. Right. So there's a lot of young student athletes out there that have a goal of playing at the next level or achieving something beyond the current situation they're in. Now, there's a lot of negativity that's going to come right into their brains.
Absolutely.
It's going to be, I'm too small, not fast enough. I'm not getting enough looks from schools, whatever the case may be. I want you to speak to that because I think a lot of times in interviews, people go past this right here. And once somebody commits something and then actually sticks to it, there's a lot of power in it, because I was talking to a guy earlier and he said one of the main things, well, he was a strength coach at ASU. And he said one of the big things for the young student athletes that he deals with is them just setting a goal and then sticking to it. Right. And then when times start getting tough, you need to understand that's okay. And you should be in tough situations. So what's going through your mind when you're going at this point?
Okay. So I'm hearing you and I'm going, that's part of what makes achieving the goal so sweet, is that the little battles along the way in winning that war, in achieving that goal, the little battles along the way that challenges that arise. If it's really in your heart, are you just talking the talk? Is it something that's just, a picture, a video in your mind, a fantasy, I'd like to do those things. Well, if that's the case, then you know what, there's 500 other kids that have an actual desire in their heart and a goal, and they are working 10 times harder than you would ever work if it's not really in your heart to do. If it's really in your heart to do, you can't get it out. You can't take it out, in other words. So my question would be, or my point would be, or my statement would be, for those athletes right there, what's going through my mind? I'm sitting here getting charged up. I'm starting to want to bounce right up and down right here, because I'm going, well, if you are that athlete, if you are that kid, so what if you're not getting the kind of looks that you think you should be getting? I'll say, watch more Kobe Bryant videos. Okay. How about strap your butt to the local football field and start running even more sprints? How about get your buddies out there and double up on your practice? How about set up, you go 3 days a week and then you have 2 other days to go and lift weights. How about get your butt out there a little bit more and hone your craft that much more and ensure that no one is going to take what is yours? How about that? Okay. The thing that jumps out in my mind the most is it's special. It's infectious when someone is so willing to go all out and give it all that they have, and they will practice in private with no one to watch, no one to see. It doesn't need to be put up on social media. It doesn't matter. They're doing it anyway. You see, if they are videoing themselves for the most part, it'll mostly be for their own edification, right? So they may see themselves and how are they coming off the line? How is it that they're running at this point, studying their own gait when they run? How is it that they're catching the ball? Is their hands open like this? Are their hands open like this when the ball's coming at them? Right? We know where the ball's going. If your hands are like this, right, it's going right through your hands. We know that. This a little bit better that way, right? Bring the fingers together closer, right? Little things, studying yourself rather than doing it just to post up on social media. By doing that, it will come to you. You don't have to go and reach out so much for it. It will come to you. Of course, do your homework. Of course, try and position yourself when the opportunities arise. But the main thing is are you doing the work? I would study people like Kobe Bryant in particular. I mentioned him because I lived in Los Angeles for 30 years, right? And now I'm in Texas, the great state of Texas. And being in Los Angeles, Dustin, Kobe, I never appreciated him until he was gone.
Yeah.
I never appreciated what he was and what he represented. Every single athlete, everybody who does anything physical, if you're not studying Kobe, now I could do without the curse words and all that stuff, the way he speaks sometimes, but that drive, right? That willingness to put out, to practice twice as much as anybody else would. That thing where the game's over and he's going in and putting in, it annoyed him that he couldn't get this one shot off in the game. So he's putting in an extra 1 hour straight, shooting just one single shot. So my question becomes this: if you're that serious about your craft, if you have trouble catching passes with your hands off to the left versus off to the right, well, are you taking an extra hour after your regular practice to catch passes just off to the left, with your jugs machine or with your quarterback throwing it off to your left? Are you doing that? Are you making that kind of an effort? Of course, I'm using the analogy of football right there because I could speak to that as well, but it could be any sport, correct? Yeah. It could be anything that you choose to do. So if we're talking about, athletes just wanting to go to another level, well, first you got to go to that level here, from your heart to here. It's got to have that. You have to have that drive. If you have that drive, others will notice. Don't be surprised if God happens to bring a local coach who happens to live in your area, who just happens to walk laps on that same field, right? That you're out there practicing twice as much as anybody else, trying to be better at whatever it is you do. And that one coach lives in that neighborhood and he happens to be walking around the neighborhood, or maybe his wife walks laps, or vice versa. If you're a female and you play, women's basketball, and maybe it's her husband, the coach's husband, happens to notice, here's this little girl shooting shots all day long. Man, that kind of hard worker, we need that on our team. And boom, there's your shot. We don't know, Dustin. We don't know, right?
Yeah.
It can happen that way. 100% it can happen that way, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. And so when you walked into Gold's, did you have much education? Did you walk in there just as you are and just try to figure it out as you went? Did you? How did you do it? How did you approach it?
That's a really good question, because from the beginning, and some of you all out there who are listening to this, you'll know what I mean by this, who already know it's in your heart. It was in my heart. So I stepped into Gold's Gym in Venice. I stepped into World Gym in Venice when it was in Venice, and then moved to the next city over. And for me, Coach Z, the big thing was I walked in like I belonged there. Not arrogant, not cocky, none of that, but also not nervous, wide-eyed like this, and none of that. I wasn't nervous. I was willing to learn. Having a soft heart and being open-minded, that was me with regards to listening to some of the, the elders and the people who had been in the sport before me. You learn that way, right? You can't go into it cocky like you know everything. If you do, it's over. It's over. It doesn't matter if you're learning how to run routes better. It doesn't matter if you learn how to throw a football better. It doesn't matter if you're a D-back, trying to defend better. Any one of those things, you're not going to do well without a soft heart, willing to be open. You can't be, the Bible talks about, don't be stiff-necked, right? Hard-hearted and stiff-necked. I know that. What does this coach know? What does he know? What's this junior college coach know right here? Well, you wouldn't know if you weren't open-minded to it and try and listen to what he's teaching you, right? And maybe God has you in that position to listen to him, and you don't know who his connections are that he could turn you on to somebody at the next level. You just don't know, right? So that's part of the message here. So yeah, walking into Gold's Gym, it was filled with the best of the best, and at the time, and man, it was an exciting time. But you really, in being there, I realized that part of my goal was already being accomplished just by being in the atmosphere. So that was really important. So a lot of you guys and girls watching this, your goals, putting yourself in the right atmosphere is going to be. And by the way, I had no fear about asking those who were better than me for help, or if I could work in with them. So that's always an interesting one too, because, in Texas, this is a good one too. In Texas, we see this a lot. Okay. Football is kind of big in Texas, if you haven't heard, right? And in Texas, you can go to the local middle school, any local middle school. Their football field is grade A. I'm talking, like it's like NFL quality. I mean, it's top of the top, best of the best. And their little stadiums, they're not little, they're gigantic. Okay. But you could show up there, and at any point in the year, especially in the off season, you'll catch some athletes there. And so are you going to be the guy that's willing to go out there and say, hey, do you guys mind if I work with you? Hey, are you willing to? And some of them are really good. You could tell that they either play, they play, what's the league right now? It's not arena football. There's arena football, but there's the other one.
In the spring, not the UFL, not the AFL.
USFL. USFL. Yeah. So we have USFL players right here. Yeah. And we have a local team right near North Texas that, they are practicing. They're getting their reps in, even in the off season, anywhere they can. So anytime you do see that, it's no different than stepping into the gym with the big fish. Are you willing to ask questions? Are you willing to, at the right time, of course, and that's what I did. And it made it so that it was easier later on, because I had built friendships with these guys, and, they knew that I was willing to work hard. As long as you're willing to work hard, okay, Coach Z, as long as they're willing to work hard, they gain respect from those who are ahead of them, above them. And it doesn't matter if we're talking about being in the gym as a bodybuilder, which is sometimes it's like a jungle, in the gym, it's it's intimidating for some people. Or if it's being around athletes, if you're in high school, being around a D1 athlete, if you're a D1 athlete, being around, or junior college athlete, being around a D1 athlete, if you're a D1 athlete, being around some NFL players, what are you going to do? Are you going to sit back and, and shrink up? Or are you going to go and say, hey, hey, let's have some fun. Can I work in with you? And then ask questions. How do I do this better? How do you do it? Right.
Well, I think a lot of guys, it's a barrier. I think with an insecurity, they have a hard time just touching their toes into the water, because all of a sudden when you do it, I think to a certain degree with a lot of kids, they almost know what's going to happen before it happens. And I say that because they are almost afraid that if all of a sudden they make the team, or if all of a sudden they get in a situation, that now they're going to have to be in the moment. Wow. And they're going to have their chance. It's almost not, it's like 9 out of 10 times when a kid touches his toes in the water, he's jumping in. Yeah. It's a fact. And I think that there's two sides of it. There's the kid that is afraid because of rejection. And then there's the kid that's afraid knowing that, I am actually that good. I just don't know the unknown and what could actually happen if I go up and I ask Lee Priest, hey, can I come work in with you? You know what I'm saying? all of a sudden, you realize this guy is just like you and I. He's a great guy, and he just wants to push hard. And that's why I say is it's like the door, if it's cracked, all of a sudden you've got all these other doors that will open. I'm not saying there's going to be one. I'm saying a lot.
Right.
It's not just one or two. You just have to be ready in that moment in time, because that's really kind of what happened with me. And just kind of share a little bit of my story. I grew up in a small town, didn't have any offers, didn't have any opportunities, didn't have any interest. I had a school call me, and it was more or less just to say, hey, this is part of our database. You probably shouldn't come here.
Wow.
And so, but just like you, that's why I brought that up of you going from Long Island to Santa Monica. And the fact that I just said, you know what, I've got speed. I've got at least something that I really think that these coaches at the highest level will want.
Right.
And I just decided I'm going to go to this school, and they did a tryout, which there's differences in walk-ons. People don't know that. I'm literally walking on, did a tryout at 80 guys. They took one guy. And by the way, that was a godly thing. We're talking about the Lord. That is a godly thing, because a lot of events led up to that. I actually didn't originally get accepted into the school. And then I stayed persistent with it. And I was like, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing? And then like a week later, they got back to me and just said, hey, the reason we didn't accept you was because of the timing. We actually really want you. So anyway, but, but we're dialing in on, we're talking about as far as, setting a goal, being fearless, not being afraid to step into that destiny that, you really want to go after. And so I run into that a lot, and that just comes out of mentorship. And that's a great segue, because you're talking about going into golds and being around all these really great bodybuilders and people that are just grinders.
Yeah.
Talk about atmosphere and the importance of your surroundings.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, backing up a half a step, I'm friends with Lee Priest to this day, because you just mentioned him, right? He was
One of my favorites.
World-class bodybuilder from Australia, and we became friends. We used to go out together with our girlfriends. Great guy, and to this day we're friends. And so yes, the atmosphere that you surround yourself with, okay, just as important as it is to keep the good and the positive and be attracted to that, and be sure to stay around other motivated people, it's equally as important to be willing to walk away from those that are not, and those who detract, those who take away from, those who are energy suckers, those who don't have goals, okay, those who don't support your goals, for that matter. Okay. I could tell you, if you're young, you're in high school, you're still in your parents' house, that's one thing. Okay. So of course you obey your parents, respect your parents, but you can still have and know your heart's desire. That was the case with me. I had mine at the end of high school, but still I waited till I was out. It never went away years later, 3-4 years later. And so by the time I was 20, I said, I'm out of here, and I'm in California. Okay. So for a lot of the athletes that we're talking to right now, it's very important that you realize that when it comes to your own family, there may not be the kind of support that you want. And they may, in their hearts, they may have the best of intentions for you, but they don't understand what's making you happy. Hey, if you're just barely making it, but you're making it, and you're training for your sport, and you're giving it a shot every year. And listen, we're talking about the Walk On Warrior podcast right now. You walked on one time and you didn't get on. Does that mean you're not going to try again? Does that mean you don't belong in it? I thought you believed in your heart you do, right? So how motivated are you? So the atmosphere is very important. So rejecting those who, without getting in arguments, but just you choose who to be around. Okay, very selective. There may only be 1-2 people in your life that'll be that supportive of you, but those are the 2 that you need around the most. Those are the 2 that you need to be around the most. One of those 2 might be Kobe Bryant, videos of Kobe Bryant. I don't care what it is. Watch those videos, right? Stay motivated. It's extremely important. And then lastly, I would add the atmosphere. So the atmosphere, they say that when you're on a team, it's the team building, right? If you're on a team and you're supposed to be training with the team, train with the team. Don't do this independent thing where you're off on your own. And as often as possible, if you can spend that time with your team, spend it with your team. It does build a cohesiveness for a fact. Okay, that I've noticed even in my own children and their sports that they've done. So it's very important. I'm talking to Coach Z right here, so I'm sure he agrees to a great degree that you guys who are off doing your own thing at times, if it means because you're from a different area and you can't be there physically in the off season, that's understandable, or in a part of the off season, that's understandable. But when it's in season and you're there, or when it's your off season and you're supposed to be on the campus, then you do whatever it takes to be there and do what you're supposed to do. That's your atmosphere. Okay. It's creating a bond. And, we know that in football, especially, that's the truth. Right. So, being in that atmosphere, being positive. And here's a good one for you too. I said lastly, but this is really the lastly. How about this? Be that guy. Be that guy. Start asking yourself this one. Okay. Man, I'm dropping these little nuggets left and right. Start asking yourself this one, and maybe ask a few of your friends this one. When you walk in the room, ask them 3 words of what they think of you when you walk in the room. If you want a reality check, a slap in the face, okay, what do they think of you when you walk in the room? Here's a great exercise for the whole team, right? What do they think of you? You might be kind of surprised. I've done this exercise, and some of them were obvious, and then some of them, wow, I was taken back, So sometimes it depends on the individual, right? And, being an alpha type male that I've been, I do know that if I'm asking somebody who's easily triggered and they don't like to be around alpha men, they're not going to say very many positive things about me or any alpha type male walking in the room, right? But on the whole, when you start asking or getting input from multiple people, then you start to realize this is really who I am and how I am. And am I that guy that motivates everybody around me? Am I that guy that speaks life into the situation that I'm in? Am I that guy that when the team is down, we're out, it's looking like it's over, does the team look at me and go, man, what are we doing? What do we need to do? And they're waiting for me to motivate them. Am I that guy? Or am I the one going, it's over, we lost, it's over? Which guy am I? Okay. Yeah. So only those who are around me in the battle are going to know. Only those who are around me on a daily are going to know. But that input, when you get it, there's a reality check for some of you right there. So I don't know, Coach Z, that's a good one. Some of your athletes, they need to have the rest of the team do a little evaluation on their brothers, It's going to surprise some of them, right? Some of them think that they are the motivational guy, and no, they're not. So.
Yeah. And I mean, that's why it's important to do team building exercises. And here's the thing, doing it outside of the sport, get away from anything that you guys are used to. Like, so one thing that we've done in the past is we've done hiking. Yeah. We went to the beach, of course. I like to do things where you're actually active and you're moving around, but it's not football or basketball or anything. It's, you're moving. You guys actually have to, I don't know. You see it a lot. We do things similar to what you would see kind of military folks would do in their training, because you have to rely on your brother next to you. Have you ever, next time you go to next time, maybe not in high school, but next time you go to, more competitive level football games, pay attention to the sidelines and the benches. If you ever watch offensive linemen, I'm not sure if you know where I'm going with this, but offensive linemen, when they sit down, you know exactly what I'm saying. Well, they sit down, but it's center, guards, tackles. And here's where it gets even better. When I was in college, and even when we're doing stuff, we go eat. Say we go eat with the team. Guess what happens with the benches? When they put their food out, you've got the center in the middle, guards, tackles. I bet you if they went to like the cinema, they
same thing.
They go watch the movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of
That's
a funny.
awesome. Hey, I want to share with you too. Now that you're mentioning the lineman, I was good friends with one of the dads of a lineman. He played for Washington State, and now he's in the USFL. His name is Liam Ryan, and at Washington State he was left tackle, and he was there for 5 seasons, and he just left 2 or 3 seasons ago and went into the USFL, and he's doing very well, or he was at last check. But from the beginning of his college career, his dad was giving me all those details, and the team building that they did, everything you just described, very much so. And, Liam being an upstanding individual, but also willing to take that lead role. He became a captain, willing to be that guy. That's what I'm talking about is, you may come in as a freshman at some point in time. No, it's not appropriate to be, the guy at that point, the leader, obviously, but you can act the part in those moments, or at least not fall apart in those moments that you need to be, right? And then eventually you're recognized as that leader just by your work ethic alone. So having that work ethic, that was Liam in the beginning. And then by, year 2, he was a starter in year 2. Year 3 he was a starter. 3, 4, and 5. He was a 3-year starter. And so, you guys can walk in on it as you wish, but eventually you're going to have to decide. It's a decision to be that leader among your team, to be that guy. And even I'll tell you this much, coming from a guy like me who was in a very individual type sport, all the years that I did, I competed from age 18 to 52. Okay. It's a very long career in bodybuilding. And, I did it every other year, every third year. And then eventually in the last 4 years of my competitive thing, from the time I won the Mr. America, they gave me a pro card, a natural pro card. And so I competed in the circuit around the world and did well, took as high as 2nd place in some natural pro shows, and went to the world championships, took as high as 6th place in the world championships, which, they're excellent. They're amazing. And in doing so, there was and is to this day an element of team where you actually create friendships around the world, and I have them to this day, that, you could be an individual, you can, run on your own and all of that. And it's a very lonely path along that way, or you can share the experience with others. And when you do so, you learn more and you actually get better, because that competitive edge between the two of you, between your brothers and you, I'm talking, male brothers with me. I didn't have a bunch of, female bodybuilders around the world I was friends with. So, yeah.
Well, what you're talking about, we call it having that edge. Yeah. You're just a little off, but a little on, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I mean, and that's the one thing is so just like my guy, Urban Meyer back here, he talks about the 10-80-10 rule, right? Where you have the 80%, which, I'm talking about with this. Yeah. And, and those 10 percenters have to make a choice. Right. But guess what? A lot of times those guys have already made that choice because they have it in themselves, whether it's through their parents instilling them or experiences. Right. And they're naturally going to start bringing those 80, guys in.
Drag them up. Right.
And you talking about the bodybuilding thing is, when I do talk to bodybuilders, they always say, well, it was because I was around this guy.
Yeah.
Or I was around this guy, and he said 1 or 2 things that just flicked that switch. And then all of a sudden, you became that 10%. I think Dorian mentioned, he talks a little bit about that and how and you wouldn't even know the mentors a lot of times. Yeah. They're just people that come out of nowhere. And that's why what you were mentioning earlier is it's like being attentive, being humble, and having the right attitude, because you never know who it is. It's good to have an edge, but at the same time, being that type of person that also can be able to pull the layers back. Because if there's one thing that when I talk to the highest level, either players or coaches, they always say, listen, we will go and sit in the front row of somebody that may not be in our position because I'm trying to get something from them, but you have to be humble,
right,
to get that sort of thing. And that's why I like doing podcasts, because I can just sit here and just be like, dude, you guys are filling me up here.
right. Oh, that's really cool. You're speaking truth right there. Being humble enough to be in a position to learn. And Dorian and I have similar. Dorian Yates is who you're referencing. For those who don't know, Dorian Yates was a 6-time Mr. Olympia in enhanced bodybuilding. I gain inspiration from both natural and enhanced bodybuilders. It doesn't matter to me. Again, that's I don't judge. Do whatever you want to do. Okay. But compete in your sport. If you're going to do the drugs, compete in the drug sport. Don't compete in the natural drug test one and try and scam everybody. That's being a douchebag right there. But Dorian, in fact, gained his original inspiration in bodybuilding and knowledge base was off of Mike Menser. And Mike Menser was also mine. He was my original inspiration in bodybuilding, and very logical, make sense way of training, high intensity training, short, brief, very intense workouts. Sometimes, and keep in mind, I hesitated, before when I was saying, be like Kobe, do more. Well, when I say that, I don't necessarily mean do more weightlifting. Out of everything you could choose to do, maybe not even do more running. Maybe you did enough running in practice. Maybe you practice your breaks as a wide receiver plenty in practice. Maybe you did. Okay. But maybe it's just doing it in your mind. At one point, Kobe talked about when he had broke his leg or he tore his calf and he couldn't go anywhere or shoot baskets. He shot 1,000 baskets in his mind. He shot 1,000 baskets in his mind every day. And so that your brain doesn't know the difference between, did I physically do it or was it done only in my mind? So either way, that experience comes on through. So I am talking about brain training right there as well, not just physical training. So yeah, Mike Menser was also an inspiration for me. I share that with Dorian. And I became friends with Mike Menser over the years. We ended up living, just like you mentioned, you live near a bodybuilding legend right down the block from you. Same with me. Mike Menser lived on the same block as I did when I moved out to Southern California, and I became friends with him. I actually paid him to train me so that I could just absorb. I wanted to absorb everything I could from him. And to be honest, here's a little funny part about that story. I don't say it much in interviews, is that as legendary as he was in bodybuilding, at the time when I met him, he wasn't exactly a positive individual or role model for that matter. Yeah, he was neither. He was neither, and he was actually quite nasty and smoked cigarettes, which I couldn't stand. So I had to get over all of that and throw it off to the side and go, I don't care, but what he has between his ears, I want that. So I need to know, what he's teaching. And that's what I was after. And then eventually, you use your phrase, peel back the layers. And behind that was a man who was actually very nice and polite and then articulate and intelligent. So in bodybuilding, that was rare. And so having someone like that to learn from helped me greatly and made it so that I could apply it, but then also teach those principles to others. So now over the years, that's what I've been able to do. A lot of there's been several NFL teams over the years, the Bengals in particular, and the Jaguars. Both teams have used high intensity training, and the Texans. Okay, the Texans, the Bengals, Jaguars have used high intensity training, which is the form of training that I've used in bodybuilding. Very short workouts, very intense. Get the job done, get out of the gym, and that was the goal. And the progress would be at least the same as if you did more training. But now the risk of injury would be what? Reduced. The risk of overuse injuries, way reduced. And then what does it free you up to do? Well, it frees you up to watch more tape. It frees you up to perhaps go and do more practice like you should. Maybe you should be working on your releases as a wide receiver. Maybe you should be working on your breaks. Maybe you should be working on, catching an extra 100 balls off your jugs machine. I don't know. Whatever it is, right? You're freed up. Oh, perhaps you're freed up to be that guy that can get better grades in school so that you don't end up, tanking out of a 4-year and end up at a JC because of grades. How stupid is that? But meanwhile, you're a 4 or 5-star guy, right?
Yeah.
Sound familiar?
Yeah. Well, you know what's interesting is when a kid, not to get off the subject, but when a kid gets to the university, guess what happens? There's no stars left.
Oh.
There's no stars.
That's good.
You realize that?
That's good. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's good.
Kids think so much of these stars, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a minute. That means zero.
Start at zero.
Yeah.
Earn it.
Oh man, I always talk about this a lot. I always talk about reinventing yourself. Right? You have to constantly reinvent yourself in anything that you do. But if you are lucky enough to make it to, say, the NFL, you got to reinvent yourself from Pop Warner to junior high, high school, all the way up to college. Okay, let's say JC. Now you got to go to division, whatever. And then you got the NFL. And then now you own a business. Now you got to reinvent yourself as a business. Right. So it's there's certain things you have to have. And if you don't have them, you're done. No question about it.
Yeah. I would say you got to be able to embrace change really well and be happy with change, as opposed to someone who, their everything must be just this way and oh so perfect, but that's not life. In every situation you have to be able to reinvent yourself eventually. That time has to come because let's face facts. When it comes to athletics that involve high impact or athletics that involve high forces, your days are numbered. And when it's over, I'm quoting a buddy of mine that played at Azusa Pacific University in Southern California, in Azusa. And he was a D-back. And now he's the current D-backs coach at Azusa. Well, they don't have football there anymore, so I don't know where he went. Oh, at the local high school. He's at the high school. He's a D-back coach at the high school. That's right.
Yeah.
And he said to me, as a D-back coach, as a D-back player, and then when his career ended, the following year, he said to me, he's in the gym, right in the local gym that I was at over there. And he said to me, John, when it's over, it's really over.
Yeah.
And I talked to him for a while about it. And the truth is that you want it to end on your terms. That would be the ideal. But a lot of guys and girls, it doesn't end on their terms. It either ends due to injury or it ends due to coaches say you don't have it anymore. And maybe you do want to still play. And maybe that is just the one coach or one situation that's not the best for you right there, but you might fit somewhere else. And for some players that have gone all the way to the elite levels, their ego would never be able to handle, I don't know, going to play in the Canadian League or going to play in the USFL. But for the fact that, their egos are blowing them up and keeping them from playing, they'd rather retire before that happens. I can think of a few players who have done that. So,
yeah. Not to sidetrack, but since we're talking about that, I'm actually going to start a couple 501(c)(3)s. They're both ministry based, but that is one of them. That what you're talking about is transitioning. It's the same thing, well, sort of, as a military person transitioning back into civilian life. Wow. So taking a young student athlete, specifically in football, especially say in like the state of Texas, you've been playing football all your life, and all of a sudden it gets cut short. Rug gets pulled out from under you, especially if you make it to the collegiate level, and being able to transition. Because if we're talking about emotional things, you know how like you build a bond with your teammates just as much or more than you would of somebody, say, a significant other, because there's just and I think a lot of relationships probably break up because they have a hard time going from this to this. And trying to dial it in, but
true.
Yeah. So talk a little bit so let's go a little bit into training. I don't want to take too much more of your time. We'll give you a couple more questions, but talk about discipline. So you're in this goal, you want to go and you want to be first at a high level show, whether it's Mr. America, local show, doesn't matter.
Right.
the discipline that comes along with being a physique competitor, bodybuilder, however you want to do it, it takes time. So I guess this question would be discipline and the dreaded word of patience. Talk about those two things and how important it is for a high level athlete.
Wow, that's a wide open, fun question.
Sorry.
Yeah, no. It's a good
Hard
one
though.
because anybody who's kind of worth their salt in their sport, it does get back to, knowing who you are, number one, and it gets back to goal setting, number two, and then believing in who you are along the way. And once you believe, not in a haughty or arrogant way, but believing, then you have to become a great planner. If there's anything I could say about, my bodybuilding, is that I've been a great planner. And those who execute their plans, and they've planned to succeed, usually succeed. And there's an old saying that says, if you don't plan, well, you did plan something right there. You plan to fail, right? And you will fail. So the discipline involved is at the highest level possible. I've always sought out people. I've already mentioned one, the examples of Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan. I'm not a big basketball guy. I'm not, but they inspire me. Okay. Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan in their prime. I don't need to hear them once, they're retired. The reflections are great, but I want to hear what drove them during the battle, during the training. In bodybuilding, similar. I would draw great motivation. You need motivation to keep that discipline going. Okay. Where is it coming from? Where is it coming from? And so in bodybuilding, I had, similar. Dorian Yates has been a great, great inspiration to me because he was quite meticulous and unemotional about executing the process. Okay, right there. Lee Priest was like that as well. Once he would click it into gear, the off season was a mess. It was a hot mess. I mean, he'd feel free to get fat, and he'd tell everybody it's not a problem.
I've heard that actually.
Yeah. I mean, we went food shopping once at the supermarket, and it was pretty ugly, man. Yeah, ice cream cones and everything. I remember it too. Lee, if you see this, if he tags you in this and you see this, I love you, and it's true, but I love you. And I'm not disparaging you in any way. You're one of the greatest. But so it's who I would use those things, okay, to keep my motivation at a high level. And it's not just, ready for this, it's not just athletes. And it's definitely not, as you can tell, athletes only in my sport. I wouldn't do that, okay? And it's not just athletes. It also became, you talked about transitioning, it also became highly successful business people. Okay. Today, I find great motivation in listening to somebody like a Patrick Bet-David. He has a podcast on YouTube called Valuetainment. Patrick Bet-David, he's mainly a political, but he's a businessman. And he injects that business. And what motivates him? Business. And so I gain motivation from that in my reinventing as I've moved on from being only an athlete to now, I continue to train. That's never going to change. They'll put me in the grave with a barbell or a dumbbell. It's going with me. Okay. And that's okay. But that's just what God put in my heart, right? Coach Z, that's what he did. So I'm going to do that no matter what. But how do I go and keep that discipline at a high level? I have to be able to pull it from different people in different disciplines, is the word, in different areas. How do they do it? And you'd be surprised if you do become a little bit more holistic in your listening to different podcasts or watching of different, interviews on athletes as well as those who are non-athletes. You might find that a sculptor or a painter might be the one that does motivate you. And I'll give you an example too. I was in Southern California at the time, and my wife and myself knew a young girl who it's actually a friend of ours, his daughter, who moved out to the West Coast. And she said she wanted to be a singer. And I just asked the question, well, sing. And she was very hesitant to sing. She was like, looking at me like, well, what do you mean? What do you mean? And I said, well, if you're a singer and you believe you're a singer, it's just going to come out of you no matter what. You are going to sing. If you are a sculptor, you are going to sculpt. If you are a painter, you can't help but be painting. And if you go into their home, you'll see their home is littered with pictures painted day and night. Sometimes in the middle of the night, they get up and it's just flowing out of them. It's like a Mozart thing. I gained motivation, ready for this, from Mozart. Yeah. Mozart. I was in college taking a music appreciation class, and I realized one of the most motivational individuals to me was Mozart. I bet that surprises every athlete out there. Why is that? Ready? It was straight from God to him. Everything that came out of him.
Yeah. Dude
didn't have to do all these notes. He didn't have to write down the music. It came straight from God to him. It was a gift from God. And boy, he sat to the piano, and out came the music. Out came whatever he'd play. It came straight from God. He was one of the most divinely inspired artists of humankind, not our time now, of course, but of humankind. Yeah. He didn't have to sit there and struggle. Apparently Beethoven, I learned this in music appreciation class, by the way. Every one of you students that think those classes are crap and they think that math is crap, you'll never use math, that's a lie. So why do I say that? Because here I am, I'm quoting what I learned in music appreciation class. I learned that Beethoven struggled mightily. Like all of his written music has things crossed out like this all over the place. It looks like he struggled. And his music to me is just rough and choppy. But Mozart, first draft, out came the music. He'd write it right out. First draft, all of it came out because it was divinely inspired. I drew great inspiration from that. So know who you are, know your goal, believe who you are and that you're going to get that goal, and then draw inspiration from every possible athlete in your sport, those in other sports, those in other endeavors. Be open, just like I was, to gain inspiration from sometimes the most unlikely of places. You know, a music appreciation class at Long Beach State University in Long Beach. Wow. You see, I even remember where I was at the time.
Yeah.
Does that kind of answer the question? Does that kind of give it out? I mean, I hope it was okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the last question I would ask you is failures. And I think we think we're going to fail before we fail, or at least, you know, the young kids that we're talking about, even throughout our life, right? We're afraid to, I think when people get older, the less they want to do and it's like, you worry way too much about what people think and everything. But if you have a goal and there's something you want to do that is beyond what you ever thought, just your wildest dreams. And I say that because these young student athletes, you'll run into 10 of them and 8 of them want to play after high school. It's a high percentage. Most kids want to keep playing, but I think there's some barriers that it's not external, it's internal that make them shut the door, close the door, however you want to put it. And my main goal is to break that down, right? To really take those 80%, bring them into the 10, become that student athlete that says, you know what, let's go do this. I don't care what he says or what she, because, actually I have another question on top of that.
Go ahead.
Because the thing is when you're running into this thing we call life, there's going to be failures. Kids, I don't know if they even think that that's going to happen sometimes. Yeah. And then when they get there, how do you deal with failure? So Urban Meyer talks about it's an equation, right? It's E plus R equals O. So it's your event plus your response equals your outcome. I'm sure you've heard something similar.
Yes.
So,
very good.
Yeah. So talk about that. So how do you deal with failure? because you went through. It's tough. 3-4 months of just dieting and and getting second place by a point or a vote. Talk about that. How about that?
So first of all, you mentioned something really important back about 3, 4, 5 sentences ago, which is they set high goals. You better set a high goal. That's right out the gate. You better be shooting high. Does it mean that you have to verbalize it or tell other people left and right? No, it doesn't. But you better be shooting high. Okay, that's a fact. If you're shooting low, shoot small, miss small. Shoot big, you're not going to miss big. Yeah, you are. You're going to miss big. You're going to miss big. It's going to happen. I mean, if you're shooting big, you're going to miss big. That's a line from The Patriot, actually. Mel Gibson in The Patriot, one of the best movies of all time. He said to his son right when he handed him a musket, shoot small, miss small, like that. But if you're aiming big, then the truth is that there's going to be what seems like a big fall. So you just described something in my personal life where as I was competing, the first time that I did the Mr. America, it was devastating. The first time I did it, I had won my class, a light heavyweight class, and I remember getting off stage. They just announced me as the winner. And then what happens in bodybuilding is you win your class, then you go up against the other weight class winners, and they declare an overall winner after you're done, being compared. So I would have forever been known as the light heavyweight winner in 2012, and I am. I did win that one, but that's not why I went there. I went there to be Mr. America. I was shooting high. There was only one acceptable outcome in my mind. Okay. And when I say devastating, for somebody else, it may have been the biggest achievement they ever make. And that was fine for them, but not for me. So in going into that, I had every expectation when they were going to announce the winner in 2012, it was going to be my name. And they announced the other guy. And later on, we became friends. But wow, it was, in my mind, it was very hard. It was a hard pill to swallow. It was devastating to the point where when I came back, I didn't want anybody calling me Mr. America. I was not Mr. America. I was light heavyweight Mr. America. So I went to Secaucus, New Jersey to compete. When I went back to LA, the gym I was at, they had a limo driver pick me up at the airport with a sign that said Mr. America, and I walked right past them. And my wife said, "No, get back here," because she knew, she knew they did that for me, and I wasn't having it. And I told them, "Put the sign down like this." I said, "I don't want to. Don't do that." And so for about a month, I wallowed in it. I mean, I have that experience. You guys got to understand. I'm not a machine. I wallowed in it. I sure did. I got a little fat, a little out of shape. I didn't want to work out. I didn't want to do this again. I didn't want to go through this again. So I had a very human reaction. I wasn't instantaneously going, I'm going back again. I'm doing this again. I'm taking it no matter what, like that. And it took my wife to kind of make me realize, you're miserable. And what is this? And when I told her, that I was miserable and that, my ultimate goal I had not achieved, she said, well, let's pray about this. And we got God involved in our business. So the first thing that I want to throw out to you guys is, if things don't seem to be going your way, let's make sure that God is involved in your business. So I was just at an FCA meeting right here in Fort Worth. My wife was actually speaking. She was a professional runner, and she won the 4x400 in the Pac-10s back in 1998. So wow. She ran with Olympic. That's at UCLA, by the way. She's a graduate of UCLA, and so she spoke at the FCA over here, and I was there, watching all the athletes and listening to my wife speak, and it was amazing. It was awesome. But she also told of situations where, she had what appeared to be failure, and how do you react to that? And she's a believer. And so similar to me, we both have the same foundation. And so, of course, I'm saying, resorting to your number one, which is My wife said, "You're miserable." I acknowledged it. And then we agreed to pray about this and see, because she asked me, "Do you think you should go back?" And I said, I don't know. I like this. I was too in it. So it took somebody to say to me right then, maybe we should pray about this. You're right. Let's pray about this. Let's remember who is our foundation. We both have the same foundation, right? And so we prayed about it, came out of that prayer, and she says, "What'd you get?" I said, I got that I got to go back. And she goes, "That's what I got too." And she goes, "Then you better go back." And I said, "All right." For the next 11 months, I unleashed with everything that I had. And by the way, let's not make any bones about it too. You're not exactly balanced, when you're in the middle of all out training. You're not a balanced individual when you have the Olympics coming up and you're closing in on that last 6 months of training. You are honing in on that goal. So sometimes you will be unbalanced. It doesn't mean abandon God out of your equation. It doesn't mean drop him. Keep him in the equation. So that's my foundation. Okay. For those that don't believe or don't have that experience yet, then I would say, well, what is your foundation? If it's shaky, then I'd say, consider my foundation.
Yeah.
If it's shaky and you don't really know what it is, then consider mine. You might get a hold of Coach Z or myself through social media. You'll find that we make some time for those that do have sincere questions about such things. However, if you do have, maybe your foundation is your family. Maybe you need to sit back with your family and reevaluate everything, right? And maybe it will come that one of them reminds you that they believe in you. They know you have it. They will remind you of your goals you've had since you were in Pop Warner, and now you're at this other level. And yeah, it looks like you didn't make this team, or no, you're not a starter, or there was an injury this year. Okay. But I even used this on a young man recently. Okay. Football player, 20 years old. Okay. Has missed 2 seasons and suffered with a little bit of like patellar tendonitis from growing so fast. He grew like 6 inches near the end of high school. And now he's over 6 feet tall, wide receiver, hasn't played full blown in 2 years, but is healed now. Yeah. And expressed a little bit of doubt about getting back on the field, because 2 years ago, he was just out of high school. You get it? So this is a whole other level at especially at like an FCS D1 school. Okay. So I said to him, I said, "How old are you?" He says 20. And I go, "Remind me again, when do wide receivers peak?"
Right.
"Oh, you mean 26, 27, maybe 28? So I said, "Now remind me, how many of them have had like the ACL tear or the injury or the concussion thing that kept them out for a season or 2? Okay. But yet they came back, but yet they trained, but yet they overcame." You need to become an overcomer. It's not just me saying the word and being motivational like a cheerleader and saying, become an overcomer, but establish what is your foundation. Always get back to your foundation. Once you know what your foundation is, reminding yourself of your goal and then getting back to it. And then look at the reality of what is, not what your emotions think it is. Get out of your soulish realm. Your soulish realm is your mind, your will, and your emotions. Those things change. All 3 of those change easily. Coach Z, all 3 of those change so easily. I can go and slap you upside your face right now. You'd be upset with me. You'd have a whole other set of emotions. You might feel good about me right now, but not after I slap you upside the face for no reason whatsoever, right?
Yeah.
And so that area can change like the wind. The wind will change direction. Our emotions will change direction, okay? Our mind can change direction. Our will can change direction. So what else do we have? We have our spirit man. Then we have our soulish realm that I just told you about. Then we have our physical. Well, if you're taking care of all the physical, then I would put forth to you, and I know I'm preaching right now, that there's a spiritual element right there that maybe you're not acknowledging. And when that spirit man is super, super strong, you feed your spirit man spirit food, it will govern and control both the soulish realm and the physical. Suddenly, your physical man will be edified and strengthened. Suddenly, your soulish realm will become a little bit clearer and more defined and not so wishy-washy with the wind and every wave that a boat hits. It's up, it's down, it's up, it's down. So I know I'm taking you down a road right there, but
No, it's perfect.
Yeah, it's no different than when I reminded that D1 FCS wideout that says he's walking on. He's walking on this next year. I'll give you details later. We'll see how he does, But he believes. He's 20. He's a child. Just because other people walk away from it at that age doesn't mean you have to.
Well, you said that he had some doubts. Have you ever had doubters?
Oh, man. Hello. No, come on. No,
because if you set a goal to that point, because we were talking about it earlier, you're talking about having this high goal. So you're going across the country.
Yeah.
That is a huge goal, and everybody is going to say no. Like you're talking about your counselor. People, there's always going to be more people telling you no than they are going to be pushing you forward towards it. It's like the Rudy story, right? The guy ends up passing away, but that was the only guy that pushed him, and he actually ends up achieving the goals, and he never has to look back and be like, I should have done it. You know what I mean? I did.
Yeah. It's really amazing. You just used I was thinking of Rudy when you said that, that kind of bulldog mentality. And yes, even when somebody, it's no different than Mike Tyson when, what's his name died? The guy who coached him up. Why am I forgetting?
D'Amato.
Customato, when he died, he was devastated, but it also motivated him because Customato believed in him. And he told him he'd be the world champion, and he did. And Rudy getting motivated and continuing on no matter what, living a dream that is the vision. At least in the movie, it showed how his dad had the vision of Notre Dame and getting to be in the stands during a game at Notre Dame, and he actually got to do it to see his own son play, right? Yeah. When I had doubters galore, it seemed like, left and right. My high school guidance counselor, you mentioned that just now. You've obviously seen my testimony somewhere else because I don't think I mentioned it just yet, but I'll share the quick version. My high school guidance counselor was just trying to motivate me. I was I was graduating high school early. I had great grades, and I had applications going on at various colleges. She was trying to get me to pin me down to get the best direction for me to go. And she didn't, have a hardcore thing with me. I was good at a lot of things, but not great at anything in particular at that one point in time because I had not disciplined myself to focus. Oh, we didn't use that word yet, Coach Z.
No. We're almost there.
Oh, man. You need to hone it in and focus, okay? Man. A lot of y'all need to hear this right now. Brothers need to hear this right now. If you really want to be going up to the next level, if you need to get out of the 2-year JC and move up to the D1 level, is that really your goal? Is messing around with those little girls on the side going to really help you to get to that goal? Ooh, ouch. Just get it together. Your coaches don't follow you around every weekend. They don't keep an eye on you. They're not babysitters. Man, they need to hear that. Some of them need to hear that. Is that really their goal? If it is, stop kidding yourself. If it isn't, if it may not be your real goal then. But if it is, then drop everything that is keeping you away from it. It's only for a short time. Once it's over, it's over. Okay, that's the deal. Once it's over, it's over. So my guidance counselor, when she asked me, back to the story, she asked me, John, just give me something. Give me anything so I can point you in the right direction. Just what do you want to do? And out of my mouth comes, I like this bodybuilding thing. And she looks at me. I had just been introduced to it. My uncle just introduced me at a bodybuilding seminar to bodybuilding, one of the legends in the sport at the time. And so I told her the truth. She said, give me something. I was lit up about bodybuilding right then and there. And she says, all right, poof, you got the greatest body in the world. What are you going to do? show people how to work out for a living. Yeah. Now, Coach Z, any of y'all, look, all of y'all hearing this right now, you're going to think, well, yeah, you could become a personal trainer. There was just one little problem at the time when she said that. The job didn't exist.
Right. Right.
Yeah. At that time, right? She said it to me and I got all lit up. I remember walking out of her office and there were these saloon doors that swooped out like this out of her office. And I remember looking over at this old beat up couch that the students used to wait on. And I went, training people, showing people how to work out for a living. How cool would that be? And sure enough, a couple of years later, I spent 40 years up till now training people. I still do to this day. I do it, a company hired me right out of the public to train them. It's a ministry and one of the biggest ones in the world. And so that's what I've done for 40 years as my main income. But it didn't exist at the time, you see? So she kind of really shamed me, and I could have gotten just knocked off my platform. My parents, they didn't understand what I was doing. They just thought, go to medical school, be a scientist, because your grandfather did, and he had a great outcome and was a great medical doctor. And he made lots of money too. That sometimes your parents are giving you advice that in their minds is the best advice because they see so much potential for you in this arena, but God may have for you this arena over here. So you have to decide ultimately, right? Do I take this advice? Don't get mad at your parents for trying to guide you. That's what their job is. It's going to be real. Those of you who have both parents in the household, they're going to guide you no matter what. And it is their opinion. They're trying to give you the best that they can. You might have some coaches along the way too that are going to give you advice. Doubters, yeah, I had not just my high school guidance counselor. My parents doubted me with the bodybuilding thing. Moving across the country, you mentioned a couple times thus far. Man, I remember my dad. He was out of his mind. I grew up in an Italian Catholic family, very close-knit, man, close-knit to it, as a family goes. And on the East Coast, that's a big thing. They expected me to be, living and growing up and having a wife and kids right in their neighborhood, just like all the rest of them did. And that didn't happen. So that kind of blew the hair back on their heads when I split. And so they were doubting. I came out to the West Coast. Were there doubters? Yeah, there were doubters. It was, they cut you down in a second if they knew what your goal was. That's where you have to use discernment in knowing who do you share your goals with, right? Be very mindful who you share your goals with. You don't need somebody who's going to be a fake cheerleader and no matter what, give you just cheerleading positive platitudes left and right. You need someone who's going to be critical and say, yeah, you suck when you go left and try and catch a ball, compared to your right. You suck. Get it right. You need to practice that a million times before you can get it better. You need someone who's going to say that to you and lift you up when you do get it right and believe in you too. So yeah, I had multiple doubters, even when I say I was going into a certain show and, I don't know, they're pretty big at that show. And I go, that's okay. Let them be big. After a while I'd be like this. Oh, that's okay. Let them be big. I started getting a little bit, you got to sometimes kind of be the wind in your own sails. And if no one's going to talk highly and promote, what you're doing, then sometimes you got to be the one doing it. And just out of your mouth, boom. It says, God says that, it's a man shall live by the fruit of his own lips. So therefore, I like living by the fruit of my lips because I only speak positive outcomes, great outcomes out of my own lips about me and my life. So are you doing the same in yours? Wow.
Well, Patrick, to quote Patrick Bet-David, he was talking about this not too long ago. He says you're going into a red ocean.
Yes.
Red ocean, and the fact that, like, for what I'm doing here with Walk On Warrior is, like I was mentioning earlier, is taking these young student athletes, preparing them, guiding them, putting their emails the proper way, social media, doing all this stuff so they can get more looks.
Yes.
And just trying to figure it out as we go. And the young generation's in a situation right now where it's probably the least cared about, it seems like. And, that's my goal, is to get in there and really grab that, because yeah, it's just, anyway. But, and then of course, these young kids getting momentum, right? That's one of the names of one of my 501(c)(3)s that are going to be soon, is going to be called Momentum. And it's all about that progress, the little progress, but celebrating that as you're going, because just getting a new pair of shoes, for gosh sakes, for some of these kids is momentum to get them to move, right? It's amazing when you get around these kids, how much I've learned and their situations and scenarios and stuff. And then parents, sorry, there's no such thing. There's no such out here. It's hard to find two parents.
Sure.
So,
I understand.
last thing I would say is how do you overcome those doubters?
Oh, well, first of all, faith comes by hearing. All right. Faith comes by hearing. Fear also comes by hearing. Doubt is a form of fear. So if faith comes by hearing, then what goes in these ears is going to determine what comes out of my mouth, and also my belief system. So if you're going to be discerning enough to know that you have a doubter in your life, your job is not to squash them. Your job is still to succeed. Your job is still to have faith in your mission. Is it really a gift from God that you have, and an assignment from God that you have? Because at some point in time, you have to acknowledge that somebody may need to hear from you in a locker room. You may be on that kind of an assignment. You may be the only person that has a positive word for an individual who needs to hear a positive word, who's been beat down all their lives, but has a physical gift in athletics, if you're in an athletic realm. And what comes out of your mouth is going to be vital to them and their success, or a change in their life. What comes out of your mouth for sure is going to be vital to your own success. So, and your faith. So faith comes by hearing. The Bible says faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. So of course I believe that word of God, if you're hearing it, you're going to be supernaturally energized, both spiritually and physically. So how to overcome doubters? Keep in mind, I just said, boys and girls, the same thing. Faith doesn't just come by hearing, fear does too. Do you need to hear that? Do you need to receive it in your heart? I'll give you the simple formula. You overcome it by not receiving it, and by speaking words of success, victory, faith, and receive those words. Even if you're the only one here, I'm going to give you a big fat nugget right now. No, it's a boulder. No, it's a meteorite about to land in your universe. Okay? Brothers and sisters, do this. A doubter comes along. They lay some doubt on you. In bodybuilding, I learned this a long time ago. It's ultra important that you go and you speak what your faith says, even if you have to wait till later on and you get in your own room by yourself, but you listen to the most believable voice in your universe, your own. And you know how I know that's true? Because there are sayings that go around that say some people believe their own BS. Okay. And that's true, because they could say something so many times and they'll believe what comes out of their own mouth above what anybody else says about them or their situation. So I'm going to take that principle and I'm going to apply it to everything I do, just like you should. And if you have doubters in your life, pray for them. Okay? If you have doubters in your life, how do you overcome that? First of all, hit them with questions. Ask them questions. Maybe ask them, why would they doubt what you're doing? Maybe ask them, why would they doubt or not have a belief in what you're doing? Let's see what comes out of their mouths. You know, it might really surprise you that they're really speaking their own insecurities and trying to put that on you. But you don't have to receive that. Overcome it with your own words. When you have a moment after hearing what comes out of that doubter's mouth or multiple doubters' mouths, and certainly you don't need to repeat or read social media. If someone's doubting you on social media, stay out of the comment section. Stay the heck out of it. You don't need to see those negative. Yeah. Do not repeat to your friends, so-and-so said this, so-and-so said that about me. I'll show them. Well, here's the problem with that. You just spoke what they said. Yeah. Don't repeat what they said, because who's the most believable voice in your universe? Your own. Your own. Yeah. Don't repeat what they say. Don't do it. Right? Counter it. I'm giving you the way of overcoming it. Number one, don't repeat it. Ask them questions. Don't repeat it. And then number two, overcome it with your own words of faith. Faith-filled words. Right? Repeat those faith-filled words. I will be the best in this field. I am already getting better right now. I'm already better right now than I was 6 months ago. I perform better at this sport than I did 6 months ago. I'm already moving up the ladder in rankings right now as we speak. I have no doubt or unbelief, every confidence, I'm going to make it. And then if you're a praying man or woman, Father, I know you're with me on this one, and I know we're going to make this in the name of Jesus, because I know you're behind me, and I'll use that name of Jesus at every turn, okay, because it's powerful and almighty. Yeah. But that's it. Stick with your words. Watch your words. Do not repeat what a doubter says. Speak success into what you do. Watch your own film all over again. Maybe you have it on your phone. Maybe you need to watch and go, man, that was a great catch. Man, that was a great throw. Man, that was a great tackle. Man, stay on the positive end. That wouldn't be the time to go into a big period of self-critique, by the way. Take some things that you know are a weakness and work on improving your weaknesses, but don't put yourself down like other people will put yourself down. Just do the work, but do not repeat it. Does that make any sense?
Man, I know this is for the young student athletes and maybe parents and coaches out there, but you're hitting me right where I needed it, man. I've been praying for a while. So, hey, you're giving it back to me, man. My cup's overflowing. Last thing, I'll just finish with this, and I'm being 100% serious about that. But I will just say that there's anything you could do differently through your career and being a competitive athlete, what would you do differently?
I would have, when the iron is hot, you got to strike. I was a little bit blessed in the way that my sport you could do into a later stage in life. You really don't peak in natural bodybuilding until you're in your mid 40s. I was 48. I still had it. I was gifted, and I believe I was blessed by God to do it when I had really peaked around 48, 49. When the iron is hot, when you have the opportunity and you have it together, overcome the fear, overcome the doubt. I had fear and doubt when I was younger, and I held back, and not just holding back and I don't mean training. I mean actually putting both feet in the water, like you said, touching both feet in the water, putting in that entry form, entering the contest sooner. My son asked me one day, he said, do you think you could have won the world championships? And I said, well, I took 6th place at 48 in the world championships. And I stopped and I went, yes, I could have won it. And he goes, you mean at like 49 or 50? And I said, no, not at all. No, not at all. I mean at 30. And he goes, but you were starting a family at that stage, at 35 or ish, like that. I said to him, and he goes, but you were starting a family then. And I go, well, yeah, I know, but I'm saying I could have done it then. The iron was hot then, but I just didn't believe I could. So I had doubt about it at that time. I thought I had to be so focused on everything you guys, and really, I think I was a little bit wrong about that. And looking back, no. So do I have regret? No, not really. I got my heart's desire. God made it way up for me. I got the titles of my dreams, and doing things like this, even with you, this is part of it, is that it's garnered enough attention that to this day I have income and business that comes off of those achievements. So the money I made was not in the sport, but it was after the achievements in other ways. So the answer is, if there's something I would change, and the thing I would share with the athletes out there, is strike when the iron's hot. Don't let fear or doubt be part of your game. If you're operating in faith and you're speaking faith, you're believing in faith, then when the iron is hot, you'll move. You'll move in faith, even if it means you can see what the next step is, but you don't know step 2, 3, and 4. Even if it means move across the country, even if it means going to the transfer portal, even if it means applying to this one school, even if it means talking to this one coach, even if it means going to Louisiana. You don't like Louisiana. It's got a lot of mosquitoes, but there's a school down there that fits you perfectly. The coach, the team, and it's you all the way. You know step 1, but you don't know step 2, 3, and 4. And nor do you like what step 2, 3, and 4 is in your mind. Well, in faith, you do have to take that leap in faith. So that's what I would change, is I would say strike when the iron is hot and take the first step in faith. As long as you know and are confident enough that it is a faith step. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, the first step. Listen, we're gonna have to do part 2 here soon, man, because I got a lot going on. The next one we'll definitely do something a little bit more faith-based, because I don't know who needs to hear it, but somebody definitely does, and me included. So
sure.
But before we get out of here, did you want to go ahead and plug what you got going on?
Yes. First of all, I do have a YouTube channel. It is, part of my gig at this stage in life, in reinventing myself for the last 4 years, in my post-competitive life. I started a YouTube channel called Mr. America Heart. It's spelled HEART, like the blood pump. You can go on YouTube and just punch in Mr. America Heart, all 3 words, put a space in between. Channel will come right on up. Hit like and subscribe. Like all the videos, but then subscribe to the channel so you'll get those videos popping up. And then I came out with a great high-intensity training course. It just came out about a month ago, and that is at hitwithmramericaheart.com/course. Coach Z, if you would put that in the video description for anybody watching this, that would be great. You actually got to do an https:// then www, and then hitwithmramericaheart.com. It's a long title, /course. And you go there and you'll find that there's still some good discounts going on with the initial launch of the course. It's doing really well. And it's the one place where I have the biggest collection of everything that I know. You might think my YouTube channel is really the place, but that really is kind of bits and pieces scattered all over the place in different subject matter, depending on what I feel like talking about, right? It's a show. And what I might have special guests on, right? So you got to do a lot of homework and digging to find out all the information and kind of sew it all together. But when it comes to training in particular, and you want to grow some muscle, reduce your body fat, and do it in the least amount of time with the most effort possible, high intensity training is the way. And you can go ahead and find it through that course that I just told you about. I put it all in one place, and I have teachings in there that I've never put anywhere else. That's the point. So I usually say from my heart to you, and I'm saying it right now, from my heart to you at the end of my videos, but I am saying it right now because it's the end of this interview. But from my heart to you, John Hart, I want to let you all know I love you, appreciate you. You can always go to the comment section of any of my videos and say you saw me here on Coach Z's Walk On Warrior podcast, and I will acknowledge it when I see it. That's for sure. YouTube lets me see all the comments, but if you hit, I'm a Walk On Warrior subscriber or Walk On Warrior athlete, I will know what you mean, and I will acknowledge your comments. So that's it right there. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for that. And also on the Walk On Warrior podcast, same thing. Like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Listen, we're dropping videos every single week. And I'm telling you, in the next, in a couple of weeks when this thing comes out, this is going to be probably the most explosive of all of my podcasts so far. And so super excited for it. And hey, I always like to finish my podcast off like this, something similar to what you do, but I always like to say it like this. Listen, you young student athletes, parents, coaches, everybody out there, it's not about me and John. It's about you guys. All right. See you guys on the next episode.